6 months had passed since that day at the spaceport. 6 months since everything changed. Tay stood in front of the mirror in his dormitory room at the Human Technical Institute. He wore the standard student uniform, a simple blue jumpsuit with the school's logo. Behind him, through the large window, he could see Earth's surface stretching to the horizon. Earth. He still couldn't believe he was actually here. The journey had been overwhelming at first. The transport ship from Nexus Station took 3 weeks. During that time, human teachers had worked with him and his brothers, preparing them for what to expect. They learned Earth's languages, customs, and basic human technology, but nothing could have prepared them for actually arriving. Earth was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in patterns. From space, it looked peaceful. When they landed, Tay discovered it was also incredibly busy. Billions of humans all moving with purpose, building and creating and living. The Human Technical Institute sat in the middle of a city that seemed to go on forever. Tall buildings made of glass and metal, flying vehicles moving through carefully organized air lanes, gardens and parks everywhere, because humans apparently believed nature should exist alongside technology. The first week was the hardest. Other students stared at them. 3 Valian boys with blue skin and 4 arms, walking through hallways designed for humans. Some students whispered. Some pointed. A few took pictures. Tay wanted to hide. He wanted to go back to Nexus Station where at least he understood how things worked. But then something strange happened. A human student named Jinho approached them in the cafeteria. He sat down at their table without asking permission. "You're the Velians everyone's talking about," Jinho said. It wasn't a question. Tay waited for the insult, the dismissal, the assumption that they didn't belong. Instead, Jinho asked, "Is it true you have 4 arms? That must be amazing for engineering work. You could operate 4 different tools at once, that was it. No judgment. Just curiosity and even a bit of envy." More human students joined them. They asked questions about Velian culture, about Nexus Station, about what it was like being the first aliens at HTI. Not one of them suggested that Tay and his brothers didn't belong. The teachers were even more surprising. Professor Kim taught quantum engineering. On the first day, she called on Tay to answer a question about particle wave functions. Tay didn't know the answer. He'd never studied quantum physics before. "I don't know, Professor," he admitted, expecting punishment. Professor Kim just nodded. "That's a perfectly acceptable answer. Not knowing is the first step to learning. Let's work through it together." She didn't treat him differently because he was Velian. She didn't have lower expectations. She just taught. Within weeks, Tay started to understand. The human approach to education was completely different from anything in the galaxy. They didn't care about social status. They cared about effort and results. If you worked hard, they helped you. If you struggled, they gave you extra support. If you succeeded, they celebrated with you. It was strange. It was wonderful. It was everything he'd never known he needed. Jin discovered his talent for mathematics quickly. He could see patterns that even some human students missed. His professor, Dr. Choi, noticed immediately. "Your brain processes spatial relationships differently," Dr. Choi told him. "It's fascinating. Have you considered theoretical physics?" Jin hadn't considered anything beyond just surviving each day. But with encouragement, he started exploring. Soon he was working on problems that university students struggled with. The human students weren't jealous. They were impressed. "How do you do that?" one classmate asked, watching Jin solve a complex equation in minutes. "I just see it," Jin tried to explain. "The numbers make pictures in my head." "That's incredible," the classmate said. And he meant it. Kai had the hardest adjustment. His respiratory disease had gotten worse before they left Nexus Station. The human doctors at HTI examined him immediately and discovered something surprising. "This isn't a disease," the doctor explained through Bora, who had come to Earth with them as their liaison. "This is an allergic reaction to the recycled air on Nexus Station. Here on Earth, with clean natural air, he should recover completely." Within 2 months, Kai stopped coughing. He could breathe normally for the first time in years. His energy returned. He started smiling more. He also discovered he loved programming. While Tay worked with physical machines and Jin worked with theoretical concepts, Kai found joy in creating digital systems. His 4 arms let him type on multiple keyboards at once, writing code faster than anyone else in class. "You're like 4 programmers in one," his instructor said, laughing. Kai just grinned. For the first time in his life, Being Velian was an advantage, not a limitation. The months passed quickly. The three brothers grew more confident. They stopped looking down when walking through hallways. They raised their hands in class. They made friends, but it wasn't all easy. Some human students did discriminate. A small group from wealthy families made comments about charity cases and aliens taking human spots. Tay confronted them one day in the common area. "We earned our places here," he said firmly. "We work as hard as anyone." "Harder than some," one of the wealthy students sneered. "You're only here because Park felt sorry for you." Before Tay could respond, Jinho and 5 other human students stood up beside him. "They're here because they're talented," Jinho said, "which is more than I can say for some people whose parents bought their way in." The wealthy students backed down. They never bothered the brothers again. Back on Nexus Station, Nari was experiencing her own transformation. Her new job as cultural liaison for Park Trading Company was unlike anything she'd imagined. She helped human businesses understand Velian customs and negotiation styles. She advised on fair wage practices. She translated not just language but cultural concepts, and she earned more in 1 month than she'd earned in years of manual labor. But more importantly, she had influence. When she explained Velian working conditions to human business owners, they listened. They made changes. They started treating Velian workers as valuable employees instead of disposable labor. Other Velians noticed. They started applying to human companies. They started asking for fair wages from non-human employers. Some even started their own businesses, inspired by the idea that they could be more than laborers. The change spread beyond Velians. Other lower-class species saw what was happening and started questioning their own treatment. Workers across Nexus Station began organizing, demanding better conditions. The wealthy species were furious. "Humans are destroying our economy," they complained. But the human companies on Nexus Station were thriving. Turns out when workers were treated fairly and paid well, they worked harder and more loyally. The human businesses started outperforming their competition. Other merchants had to adapt or lose all their workers to human companies. Slowly, quietly, the social structure of Nexus Station began to crack. Nari received regular video calls from her sons. She watched them grow more confident with each conversation. They told her about their classes, their friends, their discoveries. "Mom," Tay said during one call, "I'm designing a new type of cargo handling system. It uses the same principles we figured out that day at the spaceport, but much more advanced. Professor Kim thinks it could revolutionize freight transport." "Jin is working with actual scientists," Kai added excitedly. "They're studying quantum mechanics, real theoretical physics. And Kai is building a logistics program that can optimize supply chains across multiple star systems," Jin finished. Nari felt tears forming. Her sons, her beautiful, brilliant sons, they were becoming everything she'd hoped and more. "Your father would be proud," she said softly. Their father had died years ago in a workplace accident, another casualty of the galaxy's disregard for worker safety. "We're doing this for him too," Tay said. "We're proving that Velians deserve better. That everyone deserves better." After the call ended, Nari sat in her comfortable apartment, so different from the cramped space they'd lived in before, and thought about how much had changed. One human had seen potential where everyone else saw only social status. One decision had started a revolution. The galaxy was changing. Slowly but definitely. And her sons were at the center of it. She didn't know what the future would bring. But for the first time in her life, she believed the future could be better than the past. That was enough. The news spread through Nexus Station like wildfire. A human merchant was sending 3 Velian children to Earth, to an elite human school, for free. In the lower districts where Velians and other poor species lived, people gathered in the streets to talk about it. Could it be true? Could someone actually care about their children's futures? Nari found herself stopped everywhere she went. Other Velian mothers touched her arms and asked questions. "Is it real? Did you really agree? Are your sons actually going to Earth?" "Yes," she told them. "It's real," some cried. Some smiled. All of them looked at her sons differently now. Not as just more poor Velian children, but as something new, something hopeful. But in the upper districts where the wealthy species lived, the reaction was very different. The Krell Merchant Council called an emergency meeting. Their representative, a large-scaled alien named Vex, spoke to the station news channels. "This is dangerous," Vex said, his voice angry. "Humans are disrupting the natural social order. Every species has its place. Valians are laborers. They always have been. Giving them education above their station will only make them unhappy and unstable." A Threx warrior commander agreed. "Humans are weak. They feel sorry for inferior species and waste resources trying to help them. This is why humanity will never be a truly powerful race. They don't understand survival of the fittest." The station's governor, a dignified alien from the Corthan species, issued a statement. "While we respect human cultural practices, we must warn that attempting to change the social structure of our station could create instability. Perhaps Mr. Park should reconsider." But Minho didn't reconsider. Instead, he did something unexpected. He called a press conference. The main conference room at the Grand Hotel was packed. News crews from 20 different worlds set up their equipment. Reporters spoke into cameras in a dozen languages. Everyone wanted to hear what the human would say. Minho walked to the podium with calm confidence. He wore a simple suit, nothing flashy. Behind him stood Bora and another human woman that most people didn't recognize. "Thank you for coming," Minho said in the common galactic language. His words were translated instantly into every major language. "I know there's been discussion about my decision to sponsor 3 Velian children for education on Earth. I want to address this directly." The room went quiet. "Many of you have said I'm disrupting the natural social order, that I'm wasting resources, that Velians belong in manual labor positions." He paused and looked directly at the cameras. "I want to be very clear about humanity's position on this. We don't believe in natural social orders. We believe in earned merit." A Krell reporter raised his clawed hand. "But Mr. Park, surely you understand that different species have different capabilities. Velians have always been laborers. That's their purpose." "Purpose?" Minho's voice became harder. "Who decides purpose? You? Your ancestors? Show me the scientific proof that Velians can't learn. Show me the evidence that they can't succeed in technical fields." The reporter had no answer. Minho continued. "Yesterday, 3 Velian boys helped me with a difficult task. They encountered a problem that could have defeated them. Instead, they analyzed it, found a creative solution, and completed the job excellently. That's not instinct. That's not simple labor. That's intelligence and problem-solving." A Threx reporter stood up. "But one example doesn't prove anything. Maybe these boys are unusual." "Maybe they are," Minho agreed. "Or maybe no one has ever given Velian children a real chance before. Maybe the problem isn't their capability. Maybe the problem is your prejudice." The room erupted in angry voices. Several aliens started shouting questions at once. The human woman behind Minho stepped forward. The room went silent again. "For those who don't know me," she said in perfect common language, "I'm Yuna. I'm the human ambassador to the Galactic Council. I'm here to make Earth's position clear." Ambassador Yuna's voice was calm but firm. "Humanity has been in space for 50 years. In that time, we've watched how the galaxy operates. We've seen your caste systems, your social orders, your belief that some species deserve opportunity and others don't." She paused. "We reject this completely." A murmur went through the crowd. "On Earth, we learned something important," Yuna continued. "Our greatest achievements came from giving opportunities to people who were told they couldn't succeed. Some of our best scientists came from poor families. Some of our greatest leaders faced discrimination. If we had accepted social orders, we would still be living in caves. But Earth's way is not the galaxy's way," a Corthan official said. "You can't force your values on us." "We're not forcing anything," Yuna replied. "We're offering opportunity. If your way is truly better, then these Velian boys will fail. If they succeed, then maybe the galaxy needs to reconsider its assumptions." Minho spoke again. "I'm not just helping 3 boys. I'm running an experiment. I believe talent exists everywhere. I believe the only difference between successful species and struggling species is opportunity. I'm going to prove it. And if you're wrong," someone shouted from the back, "then I'll have given 3 children a chance at a better life. I can live with that." Minho's face was serious. "Can you live with never knowing what they could have achieved?" The conference continued for another hour. Reporters asked hard questions. Some were hostile. Some were curious. A few were supportive. But the key moment came near the end when a young Velian reporter, one of the only non-upper-class species allowed in the room, raised her hand. "Mr. Park," she said quietly, Why do humans care so much about fairness? Most species don't. Minho smiled for the first time. Because we remember. We remember what it was like to be treated unfairly. We remember being told we couldn't do things because of how we looked or where we came from. We remember fighting for the right to be judged by our actions, not our birth. He looked directly at the camera. Humanity didn't fight its way to the stars just to accept someone else's caste system. We judge individuals, not species. Ambassador Yuna added one final statement. Let me be clear to everyone watching. This is not an isolated incident. If this experiment succeeds, Earth will expand it. We'll offer opportunities to talented individuals from every species, regardless of their current social status. The galaxy can either adapt or be left behind. The press conference ended. Minho and Yuna left the stage while reporters shouted more questions. Within hours, the videos went viral across the galaxy. Every news channel showed clips. Social media exploded with debates. Some praised the humans. Many criticized them. Everyone had an opinion. In the Krell business districts, wealthy merchants met to discuss how to respond. Humans are threatening our labor supply, they complained. If lower species start demanding education and fair wages, our profit margins will collapse. In the Threx military academies, warriors laughed at human weakness. They care more about feelings than strength. This is why they'll never be warriors. But in the lower districts, in the poor neighborhoods where billions of workers lived, something different happened. Aliens who had never questioned their place in society started asking questions. Why couldn't their children get education? Why were they paid so little? Why did the galaxy treat them as less than other species? Human businesses on Nexus Station reported massive increases in job applications. Workers wanted to work for companies that paid fairly and treated them with respect. 3 Velian mechanics quit their jobs with a Krell company and started their own repair business. They told reporters, if humans believe we can do more, maybe we should believe it too. Nari watched all of this from her new apartment. Yes, new apartment. Minho had arranged for her family to move to a better place before the boys left for Earth. 3 bedrooms. Working heat, clean water, everything they'd never had before. She thought about what the ambassador had said. Talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. Her sons had talent. She'd always known that, but she'd never imagined anyone would care enough to give them opportunity. The galaxy was changing. She could feel it. One press conference, one human's belief in fairness, and suddenly millions of people were questioning the way things had always been. Tay found her sitting by the window, looking out at the station's lights. Mom, he said quietly, are people angry at us? Some people are, Nari admitted, but others are hopeful. You 3 represent something bigger now. You represent the possibility that things can be different. That's a lot of responsibility, Ty said. Yes, Nari agreed. But you don't have to carry it alone. The humans believe in you. I believe in you. All you have to do is your best. Outside, the galaxy continued to argue. But inside this small apartment, 3 boys prepared for a journey that would change everything. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to prove that talent truly was universal. All it needed was someone brave enough to give it a chance. The knock on the door came at exactly 9 in the morning. Nari was cooking breakfast, or trying to. The small heating unit kept flickering on and off. The boys were still asleep after their long day yesterday. She'd let them rest for once. The knock came again. Louder this time. Nari wiped her hands on her worn apron and went to the door. She checked the security viewer first. That's when her blood turned cold. 3 figures stood outside. One of them was human. She recognized him immediately from the photos she'd seen last night. Minho Park, the wealthy merchant. He was here. At her apartment. In the lower districts, panic flooded through her. Rich people didn't visit places like this unless something was wrong. Unless they wanted something. Or worse, unless they were taking something back. Maybe he regretted paying so much. Maybe he wanted the money returned. Maybe he was going to accuse her sons of theft. Nari's hands shook as she opened the door. Mrs. Nari. The human spoke in perfect Velian. Next to him stood a human woman with kind eyes and a human man carrying a briefcase. Yes, Nari managed to say. She bowed deeply, all 4 arms crossed in the traditional gesture of submission. I am Nari. Please, sir, if there was a problem with yesterday. No problem, Minho said quickly. May we come in? What else could she say? You didn't refuse wealthy people. Especially not humans who could buy your entire building without thinking twice. Of course, sir. Please. She stepped aside. The three humans entered her tiny apartment. Nari saw them look around, taking in the cracked walls, the broken heating unit, the sleeping mats in the corner. She felt shame burn through her. This was all she had. This was all she could give her sons. The boys woke up at the sound of voices. Tay saw the visitors and immediately pushed his brothers behind him, protective as always. It's okay, Nari said quickly in Velian. These are guests, the human woman smiled. My name is Bora. I'm Mr. Park's translator, though he doesn't really need one. Her Velian was also perfect. This is Juan, his legal advisor. Please sit, Nari said, though they only had 2 chairs. She started to offer her sleeping mat, but Minho waved his hand. We'll stand. This won't take long. He looked directly at Nari. Yesterday I hired your sons to help me with my cargo. Yes, sir, they told me. The payment was very generous. More than generous. We are grateful. I'm not here about the payment. Minho nodded to Juan, who opened his briefcase and pulled out a data pad. After your sons left, I reviewed the security footage from the spaceport. Nari's heart started pounding. Security footage. This was it. He was going to accuse them of something. She knew it was too good to be true. I saw something interesting, Minho continued. Your sons encountered a problem. The cargo was too heavy, inefficiently packed. Most workers would have just struggled through it or given up. But your son, he pointed at Jin, he analyzed the situation. He found the anti-gravity controls. He reorganized the entire loading pattern to maximize efficiency. Jin stared at the floor, his face turning darker blue with embarrassment. That kind of problem-solving is rare, Minho said. Your oldest son showed leadership. Your youngest showed determination despite being clearly ill. All 3 showed integrity and teamwork. He paused. I want to offer them something. Sir? Nari could barely speak. Minho looked at each of the boys in turn, then back at Nari. I want to offer your sons full scholarships to the Human Technical Institute on Earth. All 3 of them. Full tuition, housing, food, medical care. Everything paid for. The room went silent. Completely silent. Nari wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. The words didn't make sense. I don't understand, she finally said. Bora stepped forward. The Human Technical Institute is Earth's premier educational facility. It's where humanity trains its engineers, scientists, and business leaders. Mr. Park is offering your sons a chance to study there. But they're Valian, Nari whispered. No school like that would accept Valians. No alien has ever attended HTI before, Minho admitted. Your sons would be the first. That's part of what makes this significant. Nari felt like the floor was disappearing beneath her. This was impossible. Schools like that were for rich families, for important species, not for Velians from the lower districts. Why? She asked. The word came out broken. Why would you do this? Minho was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was serious. On Earth we have a saying, talent is universal, but opportunity is not. Your sons have talent. I saw it yesterday. They solved problems. They worked together. They didn't give up. Those are the qualities we value on Earth, not someone's birth status or species. I can't pay you back, Nari said. The words hurt to say, but they were true. Whatever this costs, I could never— I'm not asking you to pay, Minho interrupted. This is not a loan. It's an investment. I believe your sons can succeed. I believe they can prove that talent exists everywhere in every species, even in places where the rest of the galaxy refuses to look. Tay spoke up for the first time. Sir, I don't understand. You're human. Why do you care about Velians? Minho smiled slightly. It wasn't a happy smile exactly. More like a sad one. Because 500 years ago on Earth, people who looked like me were treated the way Velians are treated now. We were told we were only good for manual labor, that we couldn't learn, that we should accept our place in the social order. He paused. My ancestors fought to prove that was wrong. Now I'm in a position to help others fight the same battle. Nari felt tears starting to form. This was real. This was actually happening. A human was offering her sons a future, a real future. Not just survival, but something more. What if they can't keep up? She asked. What if they fail? Then they fail, Minho said simply. But they'll fail having tried. That's more than the galaxy is willing to give them now. Juan pulled out several documents from his briefcase. These are the enrollment papers. If you agree, the boys will leave in 1 week. The term starts in 15 days. We've already arranged travel documentation and temporary housing on Earth. 1 week. Nari looked at her sons. Tay's face showed fear and excitement. Jin looked determined. Kai was coughing again, but his eyes were bright. Can I ask one thing? Nari said quietly, of course. Will they be safe? Will anyone hurt them because they're Velian? Bora answered this time. Earth's laws protect everyone equally, regardless of species or origin. If anyone discriminates against them, they'll face serious legal consequences. Your sons will be safe. Nari took a deep breath. Then another. This was the biggest decision of her life. Letting her sons go to another world, far from everything they knew. But what was the alternative? Letting them stay here, working for scraps, living in poverty, never reaching their potential? She looked at Minho, really looked at him. She saw no pity in his eyes. No superiority. Just honest belief. Okay, she whispered. Then louder. Okay, yes, they'll go. The boys erupted into noise. Kai started crying. Jin was asking 1,000 questions. Tay just stood there, looking like he couldn't believe this was real. Minho nodded to Juan, who began preparing the documents. You're making the right choice, he said to Nari. Your sons will make you proud. They already do, Nari said softly. As the humans prepared to leave, Minho paused at the door. One more thing. I'm also offering you a position with my company, Cultural Liaison. You'll help us understand Velian customs and business practices. The pay is 10,000 credits per month. Nari nearly fell over. 10,000 credits. That was more than she made in a year. Yes. Thank you. Yes. After they left, Nari sat down on the floor. Her sons gathered around her, all of them talking at once. But she barely heard them. Everything had changed. In one day, their entire lives had transformed. All because a human decided to see potential instead of status. Because someone believed they deserved a chance. The galaxy was about to learn something new. Velians could succeed. They could learn. They could achieve greatness. All they'd needed was someone willing to open the door. Nari's shift at the recycling facility ended at midnight. 12 hours of sorting through garbage from 100 different worlds, breathing toxic fumes and operating machinery that was older than she was. Her lower left arm throbbed where the sorting belt had burned her earlier. The medical station had refused to treat her without payment up front. She walked through the dark streets of the lower districts, her body aching with every step. This was her life now. Work, sleep, work again. 3 jobs to pay for an apartment that was barely large enough for 4 people. 3 jobs that still weren't enough to buy medicine for Kai. The thought of her youngest son made her walk faster. His coughing had gotten worse this week. Without treatment, the respiratory disease could become permanent. But the medicine cost 800 credits, and that was exactly what she made in a month. Before rent. Before food. Before everything else. The apartment door was unlocked when she arrived. That was strange. The boys knew better than to leave it open. She pushed inside and found all 3 of her sons sitting at their small table. They weren't sleeping. They were waiting for her. Mom! Kai jumped up and ran to her. Despite his coughing, his face was bright with excitement. What's wrong? Nari asked immediately. Why aren't you in bed? Tay stood up slowly. He held something in his hands. A credit chip. We earned money today, he said. A lot of money. Nari felt ice form in her stomach. How much money? 1,000 credits, the room spun. Nari grabbed the wall to steady herself. 1,000 credits. That was impossible. No one paid Velians that much. Not for any kind of work. Where did you get that? She demanded. Her voice came out harsher than she intended. Did you steal it? Did someone trick you into doing something illegal? No, Jin said quickly. We carried bags for a human at the spaceport. He paid us fairly. He said hard work deserves fair compensation. A human? Nari took the credit chip from Tay and examined it. It was real. The holographic security marks proved it wasn't fake or stolen. Humans don't come to the lower districts. Why would one pay you this much? Tay explained everything. The encounter at the spaceport. The heavy containers. How they'd figured out a better way to carry everything. The human who spoke perfect Velian and didn't treat them like servants. Nari listened to every word, and with each sentence she felt her fears slowly transform into something else. Something dangerous. Something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. "This is real money," she whispered. She couldn't finish the sentence. Tears started flowing down her face. All four of her arms trembled. "Mom?" Kai touched her hand gently. "Are you okay?" Nari pulled all three boys into a hug. She held them tight and cried. Not from sadness, but from pure, overwhelming relief. They could pay rent now. They could buy Kai's medicine. They could eat real food instead of protein paste for a whole month. "You did good," she finally said. "You all did so good." After the boys went to bed, Nari couldn't sleep. She sat at the table with the credit chip in front of her, still not quite believing it was real. Every few minutes, she checked it again to make sure the number was still there. Finally, she pulled out her old datapad. The screen was cracked, and it took 3 tries to turn on, but it worked. She accessed the public galactic network and searched for information about humans. The results surprised her. Humans had only joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago. They were considered a young species, barely past their own industrial age. But in those 50 years, they'd become major players in trade and diplomacy. What interested Nari most were the cultural notes. Humans had strange concepts that didn't exist in most of the galaxy. Something called tipping, where customers paid workers extra money just because they did good work. Minimum wage, where employers had to pay a certain amount no matter what. Workers' rights, where employees could demand fair treatment. The other species found these ideas wasteful and inefficient. Why pay more than necessary? Why give power to workers instead of employers? It didn't make economic sense. But to Nari, reading about Earth's labor laws felt like discovering a different universe. A universe where people like her had value, where hard work meant something more than just survival. She found videos of Earth cities. They looked so different from Nexus Station. Cleaner, more organized. And the people, the humans, they smiled. They laughed in public. They didn't look down at the ground when walking past wealthier species. One video showed a human construction worker talking to a business executive. They were having a conversation like equals. The worker wasn't bowing, wasn't using honorifics, just talking normally. Nari had never seen anything like it. She searched for more specific information. Human merchants on Nexus Station. The results showed several names, but one appeared more than others. Minyo Park, owner of Park Trading Company, one of Earth's most successful independent merchants. Worth millions of credits, there was a photo, a well-dressed human with sharp eyes and an expression that seemed both kind and calculating. That was him. The man who paid her sons 1,000 credits for a few hours of work. Nari read every article about Minho Park she could find. He'd started his company with nothing. Built it from the ground up through smart trading and fair dealing. Other aliens called him naive for paying his workers so well. But his employees were loyal, and his reputation was spotless. The more she read, the more confused she became. Rich people didn't help the poor. That wasn't how the galaxy worked. Everyone knew that. So why had this human paid her sons so much? Was it pity? Some kind of charity? The thought made her angry for a moment. She didn't want pity. She wanted dignity, but then she remembered what Tay had said. Hard work deserves fair compensation. Not charity. Not pity. Compensation. Payment for work done well. That was different. Nari looked at her son sleeping in the corner of the small apartment. Tay had his arms wrapped protectively around his brothers. Even in sleep, he was taking care of them. They were good boys. Smart boys. They'd figured out a better way to carry the cargo. They'd worked hard and didn't complain. They'd earned that money. Maybe this human had simply recognized that. The datapad screen went dark and Nari saw her reflection in it. Blue skin, 4 arms, the features that marked her as lower class throughout the galaxy. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel ashamed of what she saw. She felt something else entirely. Tomorrow, she would take Kai to the medical center and buy his medicine. She would pay their rent in full for the first time ever. She would buy her sons real food, and maybe, just maybe, she would find a way to thank the strange human who had given her family something more precious than credits. He'd given them hope that the galaxy could be different, that fairness could exist, that her sons could be more than what the galaxy expected them to be. Nari touched the credit chip one more time, then carefully hid it in the secure compartment under the floor. Tomorrow would be a better day. She was sure of it. She didn't know that tomorrow would change everything in ways she couldn't possibly imagine. She didn't know that the human merchant had already made his decision. All she knew was that someone had finally seen her family as people worth respecting, and that was enough. The morning crowds at Nexus Station were always the worst. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of different worlds pushed past each other, dragging cargo containers and arguing in a dozen languages. The air smelled like fuel, strange spices, and something that might have been food but probably wasn't. Tay stood near Landing Bay 7 with his two younger brothers. His blue-tinted skin marked him as Velian, and the forearms folded across his chest made it clear what kind of work his people did.
Heavy lifting.
Manual labor. The jobs nobody else wanted. Do you think anyone will hire us today? Jin asked. He was only 10 years old, but he already knew that most aliens didn't like hiring Velians. They paid too little or didn't pay at all. Someone will, Tay said, trying to sound confident. They have to, Kai coughed into his hand. The youngest brother had been sick for weeks now, and their mother couldn't afford the medicine he needed. That's why they were here, hoping to earn enough credits for his treatment. A massive cargo ship landed with a thunderous boom. The bay doors opened and expensive luggage started floating down on anti-gravity platforms. Most of it was marked with Earth symbols. A human, Jin whispered. I've never seen one before. The man who walked down the ramp didn't look that different from other species. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But his clothes were strange, perfectly fitted, made from some material that seemed to shift colors in the light. Everything about him screamed wealth. Other workers rushed forward immediately. A krill merchant with scales like armor, 2 Threx warriors who towered over everyone. They all offered their services, speaking in the common galactic language. The human looked at them all and shook his head. His eyes moved across the crowd until they landed on Tay and his brothers. You 3, the human said in perfect Velian. Can you help me? Tay's hearts nearly stopped. Both of them. The human spoke their language. Not the common tongue, but actual Velian. Yes, sir, Tay said quickly. He grabbed Jin and Kai and pulled them forward before the human could change his mind. The Krell merchant hissed in anger. Those are just Velians, he said to the human. They'll damage your cargo. Hire professionals. The human ignored him completely. He gestured to the mountain of containers behind him. All of this needs to go to the Grand Hotel. Can you handle it? Tay looked at the cargo and felt his confidence drain away. There were at least 30 containers, each one probably weighing more than he did. But they needed the money. They needed it desperately. We can do it, Tay said. The human nodded once. Then let's go. The containers were even heavier than Tay thought. Even with his forearms, he could barely lift one. Jin and Kai worked together on another, both of them straining with effort. Their muscles burned after just a few minutes. The human walked ahead of them, not helping at all. He just watched them struggle, his face showing nothing. Other aliens laughed as they passed. Look at the Velians, someone said. They can't even carry simple luggage. Tay wanted to quit. He wanted to drop everything and run home. But then he looked at Kai's face. His little brother's breathing was getting worse. They needed those credits. Wait, Jin said suddenly. He set down his container and looked at the pile. We're doing this wrong. What do you mean? Tay asked. Jin pointed at the containers. Look at the shapes. If we stack the square ones first, then put the round ones on top, we can carry more at once. And if we use the anti-grav settings on the handles, we can... The handles have anti-grav? I interrupted. Jim nodded. See this button? I think it adjusts the weight. Tay looked closer. His little brother was right. There was a small control on each handle. He pressed it, and suddenly the container felt half as heavy. You're a genius, Tay said. They reorganized everything, stacking containers efficiently and adjusting the settings. What had seemed impossible 5 minutes ago now felt manageable. They still had to work hard, but at least it was possible. The human watched all of this without saying a word, but Tay thought he saw something change in the man's eyes. Something like approval. It took 2 hours to move everything to the Grand Hotel. By the end, all 3 brothers were exhausted. Their arms shook from effort and Kai couldn't stop coughing. But they'd done it. Every single container was delivered safely. The human inspected his cargo carefully. He opened several containers, checking the contents. Then he turned to the brothers. What's your rate? He asked. Tay's mind raced. Normal pay for Velians was maybe 5 credits per container. With 30 containers, that was 150 credits. It was more money than they usually made in a week. 150 credits would be fair, sir, Tay said quietly. The human reached into his pocket and pulled out a credit chip. He pressed some buttons on it, then handed it to Tay. Tay looked at the display and felt his blood turn cold. 1,000 credits. The chip showed 1,000 credits. Sir, there's been a mistake, Tay said quickly. This is too much. No mistake, the human said. His voice was firm but not unkind. You worked hard. You solved problems. You didn't give up even when it was difficult. Hard work deserves fair compensation. Remember this day. Before Tay could respond, the human turned and walked into the hotel. His 2 assistants followed him, leaving the 3 brothers standing alone in the loading area. Jin stared at the credit chip like it might explode. Is that real? Tay checked it 3 times. It's real, Kai started crying. Not from sadness, but from pure relief. We can buy my medicine now and food, and pay rent. Tay held his brothers close, all 4 of his arms wrapped around them. Other aliens walked past, some staring at the crying Velian children. But Tay didn't care what anyone thought. A human had paid them fairly. More than fairly, a human had seen them not as servants or tools, but as people who worked hard and deserved respect. Who was that? Jin asked. Tay looked at the hotel entrance. I don't know, but I'll never forget him. They walked home through the crowded streets of Nexus Station. For the first time in months, Tay felt something strange and unfamiliar. He felt hope. Maybe the galaxy wasn't as cruel as he'd always thought. Maybe there were people out there who believed in fairness. The credit chip felt heavy in his pocket. Not from weight, but from possibility. This wasn't just money. This was a door opening to a future he'd never dared to imagine. As they disappeared into the lower districts, none of them noticed the small camera drone following them from above. And none of them knew that the human was watching their every step, taking notes on a datapad and smiling to himself. Tomorrow, everything would change.